Well, hello, everyone. You're listening and watching Rashkin Report. My name is Yuri Rashkin. I'm very glad you are here today. And if English is not your first language, or if you don't speak English, well, here's your opportunity to practice, to learn, to listen, check out what's going on. And if you do speak English comfortably, I welcome you at this particular stream because I'm going to be speaking English and I'm going to be speaking to you, dear listeners, who are also and viewers who are speaking English because we need to, I feel like I need to put on my English speaking hat for a little bit just to share with you what's been happening over the last few days and perhaps take a look a little bit deeper at what is in front of us today. First of all, Alexei Navalny. Alexei Navalny has been murdered. He has been killed. He has been viciously, brutally um, destroyed physically by the Putin regime and most likely by Putin's thugs. Um, Whether he has been this has been an execution, we do not know yet. And the importance of it, I think, matters somewhat marginally in a sense that the hell and circle of hell, to be, literary, um, that Putin should be in, now he can go lower to a lower circle level of hell. And it is a very difficult time, first of all, for his family. And I know my condolences and everybody who really considers themselves a sensible, reasonable person who is able to feel pain will feel something for family of Alexei Navalny. And it is irrelevant, frankly, whether Yulia Navalny, in her speech afterwards, whatever she mentioned or did not mention, it is irrelevant right now. And I know that there's people who will disagree with me. Many of them speak Russian. But I feel that this is a really tragic moment. And I feel terrible for his family, but I also feel terrible for the Russian people, frankly. I've been feeling terrible for Ukrainian people for a long time, but at this particular moment, I feel really terrible for people of Russia who place their hopes and faith and dreams with Alexei Navalny, and they got crushed. Their dreams, their hopes, that Russia can be a different place than it is. Russia is what it is, but there were people who believed it could be different. And Alexei Navalny was their leader. On top of it, there are other people who are currently in Russian prison, generally political prisoners, period. There are people. There's Evan Gershkovich as well, who's a reporter from Wall Street Journal, and there's Paul Whelan, who has been held hostage as well. Evan Gershkovich is a hostage, according to quote Tucker Carlson. But also Paul Whelan, who is in Russian jail and is waiting to be traded. Trade for who exactly? What is, who are, we know Putin said in his interview that there's a murderer in Berlin that he would like to exchange for Evan Gershkovich of the Wall Street Journal. But I feel there could be a bigger, more important person that may need to be exchanged. And so Putin is being Putin, but he's not giving up and he's being himself. But there are prisoners like Karamurza, like Yashin, like different people who, some of whom are missing already, currently have not been located. I believe Vladimir Karamurza is not currently I don't believe his location is currently known, which is insanely troubling, because this is a regime in Russia that has taken off its mask. And this is why they say that Alexei Navalny was poisoned. As you may recall, he was poisoned. He was on a plane. The plane was made emergency landing. His life was barely saved. He went to Germany, recovered, and then went back to Russia. So the Russia in which Navalny was poisoned, that was one Russia. And then Russia that Navalny went back to was already a different country. And Russia, where Navalny was murdered or executed, was a third kind of place altogether. It is an impossible task for a politician or a visionary or a statesman to predict what evil people may do. It can't always be predicted. And so I feel terrible and very concerned for political prisoners that are in Russian jails and prisons right now. And I also feel dreadful for the general population of Russia. But before that, let's stop for a second and acknowledge that his family, Alexei Navalny's family, does not have access to his body. We do not know. There is a murder, but there is no body, which is, by the way, a little strange for Russia. This is, but okay. So let's really call on. It's hard to call on people who have no conscience to release his body to his family. I think that is going to affect the kinds of punishment and sanctions that Russia, I feel, is going to be getting at this point. I feel like it would be really relevant for Putin to pay attention, because, like with another person who may need to be exchanged for valuable humans, and any human, punishment needs to fit the crime. And if body of Alexei Navalny is not recovered, I fail to see, this is just going to get really bad for Putin, really. I mean, like, come on, if you can at least, I think that this is really just insanely terrible behavior that people in Russia really should be protesting for this. This shouldn't be me sitting in Wisconsin, United States, and discussing whether there should be anything done to harm Putin, to pay, to exact revenge on Vladimir Putin. This should be done by people of Russia. But people of Russia said, no, the dream is dead. There is no more point in resistance. Few people, women mostly, who brought out flowers to commemorate Navalny's life, to honor him. Many were arrested. This is, by the way, protest in a country that is at war, that has such repressive regime, that there are protests, and they are only by women, because if men can come to a protest, well, then men can be sent to the front of the special military operation, of course. But Russian people have said, no, we have no agency. We are nothing. And in fact, it is unfair to expect us, the Russian people, to do anything. Look at us, Russian people. We are stuck. We are say Russian people. We have no choice. We have to bow to Putin, who is clearly stronger than anybody else. It is really up to the West to solve this problem. If you feel there is a problem, then we're not going to be solving it, say Russian people. It is also very depressing, and again should be acknowledged, because there is no opposition in Russia. There was a celebration, by the way, for Navalny's death in a Moscow nightclub. That there's a video out there that people are celebrating that Navalny has died. This is the spiral that is taking Russia deeper and deeper and deeper, at which point, honestly, the more you pay attention to what is going on in Russia, the harder it is to say that they are mere observers and are not really enablers of that situation that is the war that Putin has started, but would not be able to maintain without some kind of popular support, whether it is fear-based, whether it is greed-based, but it is there, and it's a fact. And still, I feel terrible because Navalny has died. He is a national leader of sorts, even if Putin refuses to call him by name. And there is nobody who can express grief for Russian people, for people of Russia, over this tremendous loss. And as somebody who has been living in the United States since the age of 13, and having seen many different presidents console our nation at difficult times, whether it was Bill Clinton after Oklahoma City bombing, whether it was even George W. Bush after 9/11, or as so often has done President Biden, we are used to having a tragedy and then being followed by somebody saying something of significance, of meaning. And Russian people are really just are lacking in that representation, which is once again statement to how disconnected, discombobulated is Russian society, and how thrown off it is, and how it lives in fear. And trust me, after Navalny has been killed or executed, there is not going to be less fear. There's going to be more fear. So that is what I wanted to start with, by kind of sharing Russian perspective. Then there is a Ukrainian perspective. And Ukrainian perspective looks at, I think, finds all of this very peculiar, because there are many people who claim to be in Russian opposition. There are politicians out there who trying to build bridges with the West, and some of them were elected somewhere within Russia at some point or other, and actually can claim being actually elected. But they never speak of helping Ukraine. They never raise money for Ukraine army forces. They never do go to that extra step. They speak of Putin, they speak of evil, they speak of wanting to stop the war, but they're not interested in taking the next step and helping Ukrainian war effort. And even though, to me, looking at this from very far away, I can see a situation where it would be a losing proposition for a politician to turn to his electorate and say, we are doing awful things. We are doing nothing but we are destroying another country. We are being brutal murderers, rapists, and we should really stop this. And that's really awful of us to do that. Who is going to be a politician who is going to do that? So the old politicians, or people who claim to be politicians from Russia, have to talk about and appeal to some kind of great Russia and patriotism, even though currently all this patriotism is birthing is rape, murder, destruction of Ukraine. And so Ukrainians, I feel in mass, have a tendency to look at people who speak of politics and connect to Russia as, well, another one is gone, so what? They were not really helping. Plus, on top of that, there's a laundry list of things that Navalny has said over the years. some of which are fantastically addressed in the movie Navalny. So if you haven't seen that, check it out, because it really is good. It won an Oscar for a reason. It's not just because Navalny is Navalny, which, by the way, most Russian-speaking people believe that this is some kind of a political gesture one way or another. But it's a really good movie. There's a, the poster says, it's jaw-dropping, because Navalny talks to the person who was attempting to kill him, and they speak over the phone. It really is amazing. It should be one of those, like, I have a particular set of skills, or whatever the quote is with Liam Neeson from Taken, that has become this, like a big meme. Really, a lot of this should be a meme. It's so bizarre and extreme. But nonetheless, Navalny, over his years, especially early on in his political career, when he raised and got first his notoriety and fame, he associated, it appears, with some very, very bad people of Russian nationalist movement. So we're talking like neo-Nazis. I don't know the details, but people have basically said that how do I say? I don't know the movement that he's followed, but the quotes that are associated with him are disparaging to people from Georgia, and people from different other countries. And he has also said the infamous expression that has forever been tied to him in Russian, that Crimea is not a buterbrod or a sandwich. It's just can't be easily fixed, being the situation, being the insinuation. And that butterbrod or ne butterbrod, butter bread, butter sandwich, open face Russian sandwich. It's very funny, because it's like two pieces of bread, but then you take the second piece of bread, you get rid of it. Now you have butterbrod. Crimea is not an open face sandwich, and therefore it's basically showed that Navalny was against speedy return of Crimea to Ukraine, and using this as an expression of refusal to feel grief for a person who really wanted to help Ukraine, as Navalny undoubtedly did, and expression of concern, and he really, really cared for ending the war. And when I hear from people say expressions that, he was also part of an empire thinking person, because he was against Russia falling apart into lots of different states, as it really needs to, really, ultimately. But again, a Russian politician cannot utter the expression that really our country should be a bunch of other countries. We're have really colonized a bunch of places, and we should let people go. Let those people go would be a very hard political position for a politician to claim in Russia, even though from outside it seems, upon observation, fairly obvious. Nonetheless, and so when you have one person who is viewed as hero by some, and as almost a meaningless distraction for others, I think it's important to bring those two perspectives into some kind of a existence examination, and then hopefully one of them can be retired. It's a dreadful situation, because ultimately, of course, it is the responsibility, all of it is responsibility of Vladimir Putin, who could have not killed Navalny, who could have not invaded Ukraine, who could have went into retirement after his first two terms, but was too afraid that the fate of Gaddafi in Libya, or in some other country where a dictator is overthrown and then ends up with a violent death shortly afterward as a result of an uprising, has convinced Putin that he cannot leave, that he cannot leave power, that this is going to be worse for him. And so he stayed. And that's what we have. So thanks, Muammar Gaddafi, for I don't know what, but Putin needs to go, and probably, frankly, thanks Gaddafi for inspiration that has been given to this. People sometimes wonder why Navalny went back. I think that is a fair question considering the outcome. And I really feel like there's many different answers, but he believed in the people of Russia. Because what happened before this is that there was assumption, understanding, knowledge, reality that if you are outside of Russia, then you're kicked out of the playground. Maybe this is a cruel playground over here, but it's the playground of real life, real events right now. And if you're sitting on the outside, and whatever you're doing, whether you're, as long as you're not raising money for Ukraine, for God's sake, because that would be unpatriotic Russian behavior, clearly. But as long as you're outside, you're losing their relevance and significance and meaning. And on that level, it is really important that person who sees themselves as a political actor be inside the theater. And so Navalny, who believed himself to be an actor, he was fooled. This is sometimes worst thing about politics, honestly. I'm telling you, somebody who has done this on a very local level, but I enjoy politics and very much, but it really messes with your head. Because you think that you have support, you think that people are gonna, like, you walk in and people are glad to see you, and in case of Navalny, he's had some big crowds, and I feel like it really got to him, and he believed in it, he believed in himself, and he believed in people of Russia. I can't say that this I can't say anything but to think thoughts of his family, because it's because even though Navalny's last, one of his last videos had a huge, significant views, over 100 million views, there's a big difference between people who observe and people who participate. And people who observe can get a lot of views on a YouTube video, and they can get somebody to buy into believing that should they come in and make this really brave gesture of flying back, putting their head into tiger's mouth and jaws, and it will work out for them. It's a very dangerous situation. I don't know, and nobody will ever know, if Navalny would have chosen not to have flown back to Russia had he known that he wasn't going to make it. But we don't have that kind of foresight when we live our little lives. Do our best, we try, and he thought he had a plan. Clearly, I hope, I'm pretty sure, I believe he had a plan. And so I feel bad for people for whom there is no leader, for who nobody will say words for their lost cause. And I will restate a couple of things that I've believed for a while. And that is, one, Russia can't be changed. It can't be fixed. It can't be made better. It is what it is. The only thing that Russia can be is left. And that's why I feel that Russia is like a casino, where the longer you're staying there, the greater are the chances that you're going to lose, because house wins. So the only thing you can do to save whatever you got is to run, to get out of there. And of course, I'm saying this as, someone who's come to the United States as a child. And, I live in America, and I'm American citizen, and I love it, and it's great. And yes, there's a best place for everybody under the sun. And if you love it in Russia, congratulations, live in Russia, because you're there. But safety-wise, I feel that it would be really best for people of Russia not to be in Russia right now, because it's going to get ugly. It's not gonna get better anytime soon, because in spite of the fake news being spread out there that Putin is actually dead and he's actually in a freezer. Oh, you haven't heard that one? Oh yeah, don't you know Putin died, and his doubles are now running the show. Anyway, so conspiracy theories aside, the situation is going to be dreadful for a pretty long time in Russia. So, leaving Russia as soon as possible is really the best thing that people can do. Unfortunately, I am not the first to have thought of this, in the sense that many people who have disagreed with Putin have left the country. They haven't just gotten quiet. Many of them actually left. And as we saw from Putin's interview to Tucker Carlson, that's what it looks like when you get people who disagree with you to leave the country. You can ask, somebody asks you why you invaded Ukraine, and you give them half an hour answer because you don't care. Because they're going to sit there, they're going to listen to you, and they're going to bow their heads to your idiocy and you made up history BS, because if they would have disagreed, they wouldn't be there. And that's what you get. That's what Russia is, and it can't really be changed, because there are conversations about when did we lose Russia, that Russian people like to discuss. Was it at this particular moment when things went bad, or this particular moment? Frequently they are actually, the more or less correct answer to that is probably 1993, because that's when Yeltsin attacked the parliament with tanks. And after that, democracy in Russia was again not really there. And that's what, 2 years since Soviet Union fell apart. Not real long period of time. And then after that, they've just been, tightening the screws and tightening the screws, as we are seeing today, when the screws are breaking. And people are trying to get out of there. But people who are staying are people, not just people who are agreeing. It wouldn't be fair. There are nice people and decent people who are stuck there because they can't leave, or they have sick relatives because they don't have nursing homes. Because in Russia, if you take your elderly relative to a nursing home, that really speaks of your dislike for your relative. Because if you care about your relative, you wouldn't take them to a nursing home. So you have people who are institutionally stuck and cannot leave, and culturally stuck and cannot leave. And so maybe they are supporting the end of war. Maybe in their hearts of hearts, they believe that deeply, but they will not do anything to make that a reality, because they're scared. And they're not going to be any less scared anytime soon. So if we feel that Russia is a problem, we should definitely not fool ourselves into thinking that people of Russia can change anything. Because the same way that Russia can't be made better, those people over there, they can't make it better. The upside is that they're also not really good at making it worse either. They're just kind of more like a ballast for that ship that is Putin's regime, that needs to follow the general direction of Russian ship, and you know where that's going. Where are we, друзья? Дамы и господа, ladies and gentlemen, press like, ask questions if you have questions. Let's take a look at comments. And I welcome, we have a new member on the channel. Thank you. Hi, good man. Hi, good man, says Radis, one of our regular listeners. По-английски, отлично. In English, wonderful. Good profile too. Thank you. It's necessary to explain to Americans the situation correctly. Yes, but you know what I will say? It is really crucial to share this video, because I'm sorry, there's just isn't very much voice like what I'm sharing. For some reason, it doesn't make it into Russian or English. Actually, in Russian, it's doing pretty well now, because I seem to be on Russian language media several times a day Today, I was just in Israel trying to explain how Netanyahu government is trying to cancel Israel and what damage it is doing to Jewish people in Israel and outside of Israel, and how dangerous it is what he is doing. And there is no other voice that's going to say this in Russian on Israeli TV. And part of the reason that I feel I am able to do that is because I'm an American. So, it's pretty awesome. We also have Ukrainian listeners who are not following what the conversation is about, but they're still pressing like. I appreciate it very much. Um, okay. Lana is writing in Russian, but this is an important news that should be highlighted. Maxim Kuzminov was murdered in Spain. One more terrible murder. He was a pilot who transferred to Ukraine a helicopter, Mi-8 it is called. And he was just murdered in Spain. So once again, we see Putin's regime that is going on offensive. Oh, I don't know, maybe emboldened by inaction in the United States. And so we see another murder now in Spain of somebody who has been a traitor. Russian regime has a particular distaste for who they consider traitors. And there you go once again. Hi, Yuri. First time watching your English stream. Hello, Sasha. Thank you for watching. Thank you for comments. And so on. Let's see. Sasha continues, but wouldn't be call for funding Ukraine from Russian opposition leaders considered literary treason? Exactly. See, technically, it would remove them from Russian politics for good. That's precisely it. Thank you. This is a difficult situation because asking to raise money, I mean, at that point, how do I say? The question is, are we looking about the next step of, yes, this appears treason, or do we look at several steps down the road of what is good for the state of Russia, wherever the boundaries of it may be? Is it better for the state of Russia if Ukraine wins? Long term, obviously, even if the size of the state is reduced to size of Moscow, it's still better because this evil empire needs to be reined in. So long term, of course, helping Ukraine is absolutely the best thing that can be done by anybody who wishes anything good for Russia. But it's maybe just too many steps down the road. Okay. Isn't it clear? One country, one president, and one victory. Leonid Slutsky, deputy of the State Duma of the Russian Federation. One people, one empire, one Führer. Joseph Goebbels, Reich minister. It's somewhat of a detail, but yes, Putin thinks that Ukraine is part of Russia. I don't know that anybody's really arguing with that at this particular, like how nutty and crazy it is, or Nazi and crazy it is. I don't know, nutty and Nazi, but it nonetheless is the situation. Alavarese writes, it's not about Navalny. Everyone has their own opinion about him, but the point is that the evil in the Kremlin will not stop. True enough. Must say that the West as a whole have a big role in what Russia became. Oh, I love this conversation because this is, what this is about, ladies and gentlemen? This is about the responsibility that Russian speakers feel the West has. And this is where we can acknowledge that West has dropped the ball. And in my opinion, at some point, there is absolutely time for this conversation. But to me, this seems like a really unproductive conversation because it prevents us from going forward together. And I think that's the key of what we're trying to accomplish. So yes, the West has a big role to play in what Russia has become. It's not like taking in the responsibility of Russian people, but I feel shame in how we in the West handle this problem. Yes, it does not take the responsibilities of Russian people, but Russian people, what do you do about responsibility for people who refuse to acknowledge their own agency? it's a deep philosophical problem, which just we have to keep in mind that the goal is that we all need to work together to defeat the evil empire. Классная фотка на заставке. Thank you very much. Насчет Кузьминова. Может быть, постановка, так как Испания не подтвердила убийство. We shall see if what happened with the murder of the helicopter pilot, but nonetheless, it is what's going. He appears to be, I presume, he's dead. What happened, how that happened, yes. And bias, of course, deservedly so, is always against Kremlin, because this is not, presumption of innocence until proven guilty in court. This is, I don't know, Russia we're talking about. So really it's presumption of guilt until proven otherwise. I mean, that's just really common sense. And really is the big challenge for us in the West. We are lacking. And really, I am very torn about this, because I feel like the fact that we are lacking this deep, deep sense of cynicism that is so part of Russian psyche is making us at the same time a healthier people, but at the same time slightly more vulnerable people, because we have to understand that we deal with people who are fundamentally just very cynical, and it's hard to even imagine to what extent how that can be pervasive to people's psyche, but it is total disbelief in good intentions. And it is not about ultimately what this is about. This is about the fact that Russian-speaking people live in the world that is based on understanding of strength and weakness. If you are strong, you can do whatever you want. And if you are weak, well, then you deal with consequences. I can't remember which Roman has said this. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps. But that is the strength-weakness ratio and a spectrum that we are observing Russia function in. That is also can be a pervasive political ideology, because it can be very handy in replacing an actual party platform. Strength, follow the leader, right? And Russian people of Russia have understood this very well, and Navalny's death to them is a proof that strength wins, that weakness dies, that weakness says nice things, but weakness can't be strong enough to stop the evil, and therefore strength is what is desired as a way to protect yourself against other strength. And we are really at crossroads as a society, as a country, and I don't know where it's going to go. I mean, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to continue to educate my wonderful Russian-speaking audiences because I feel like I enjoy it. I don't get to speak Russian too much, to be honest. Really don't live in a Russian community, never have. My standard operating procedure is, I see Russian people, Russian-speaking people, I usually walk the other way, and I am not alone. So, that is a popular approach among Russian-speaking community. And so really, I am not part of Russian-speaking community. I speak to Russian-speaking community, and it's a trip. It is a trip. Join me, won't you? Subscribe to Rashkin Report. Now, I try to do from time to time, obviously, these streams in English. Clearly not often enough for many of you, but I do what I can, and I feel like this particular event of what happened with the execution of Alexei Navalny is important enough to highlight and to talk about. First of all, and it is really, really crucial that there is a strong outcome, that there is a law of Navalny, the same way that there is Magnitsky Act, there has to be Navalny Act, and it has to include pretty brutal sanctions that are going to be primarily concerned about how Russian aggression against Ukraine can be stopped in the shortest amount of time possible. It is absolutely crucial that the United States do everything in our power to prevent Ukraine from losing this battle, because it will prove to people who believe in strength that good is weak. And if you want to be weak and you want to be good, then you're going to be dealt with by the strong however they want to. So we need to show that good can be strong and that good can really kick ass. And it is really, really important that United States of America shows that we can do these things, that we can overcome our own disagreements. And I feel really good, tell you the truth, about elections. The upcoming elections in November, I think, could be really have like a cleansing effect on our political process. But the problem is that until then, Ukraine still needs help. Until then, we have allies all over the world that we need to show that that our word means something, that good is strong, and that strong wins, and that we have allies. Russia has client states, and we have allies, and we have built coalitions, and we need to preserve and fight and stand with those coalitions. And it is really important for us. And it's important to give hope to people who have no hope, and even less of it now. We in the United States have an incredible position. The privilege of being an American is off the charts incredible. And I think that sometimes it feels like we live an amazing, wonderful, special life, but we don't know it. And I guess watching news from Ukraine or from Russia for a couple of minutes can be a good reminder how good we have it. But I think we should enjoy our life. I think we should uh, enjoy the beautiful things that America and the West has to offer. And we don't have to sacrifice it. We just have to spend some money. You know, they say when you can spend money, it's not a problem, it's an expense. If the problem can be solved with money, then it's not a problem, it's an expense. And I think that is a really important part of this to consider when you think about people like Navalny, who, unlike our politicians, who are afraid to lose their primary elections, and therefore they're afraid to do the right thing. Here's somebody who went back to Russia and died for his beliefs. And I look at our lawmakers who are refusing to support Ukraine right now, and I don't have words, and words fail me. So I really want to thank everyone who has watched this stream. Um, Press like, and Slava Ukraini, I'm Israel High, и God bless America. Меня зовут Юрий Рашкин.